Hey guys, thanks for coming back for another video. This week we're looking at my graphic novel collection. Now I've just started collecting graphic novels over the past couple years and my collection has grown substantially, especially during 2020. So let's just get right into it. But make sure you stay tuned to the end of the video to find out what my favorite graphic novel that I own is. Alright, let's just go right at it. Starting out with Batman, Year One. Honestly, I haven't read this comic yet. I bought it, I haven't got to it, but I have seen the DC animated movie, and if going by the movie is anything, this is going to be good. Batman in his first year tells a lot of perspective from Jim Gordon too, if up to my understanding. Really excited to read this, cannot wait. Batman, The War of Jokes and Riddles. I came across this, I want to say through possibly Variant Comic or IGN. Somebody recommended to me, like a big, online content creator, and they built it up as the new defining Batman story for this generation. It didn't quite live up to the hype for me, and I think that was a problem. I didn't think it was a bad story, I just had a little trouble following it from time to time. But, that's when I first started reading comics, is that problem I had. Kind of just being able to follow certain stories. That's why I prefer a graphic novel to like regular comic books, because you can pick up a graphic novel and it's its own story. That's why I prefer them, honestly. But yeah, Batman, The War of Jokes and Riddles. It was alright. But not one of my favorites. Alright, we got Killjoys. Now, this one is not mine. This belongs to my girlfriend. A few of these do, but I am unfamiliar completely with the Killjoys. She says she really enjoys it, though. It's by Gerard Way, who, if I'm correct, is one of the musicians in My Chemical Romance. If so, multi-talented, because of his other work with the Umbrella Academy, which I'm going to get to later. Spawn, first volume. Honestly, I'm not a Spawn fan. For everything that Spawn is, I should love him. He's violent, he's broken, he's got demonic powers, the whole background of New York's underground mixed with hell. It should be everything that I love. And to me, it is just kind of corny. Now, I should preface this by saying I watched the HBO show before I read the book, and honestly, it's a great adaptation in terms of being honest to the source material. Maybe I'll give the Volume 2 a try to see if it picks up, but I'm not holding out hope, unfortunately. But if you like it, let me know what you think down the bottom. Alright, now we've got Batman versus Robin. Just to preface this, I guess, you guys will notice that a lot of my graphic novels revolve around Batman. He is my favorite superhero. This was one of the first graphic novels I ever bought, though. And this was during the arc where they were trying to figure out what happened to Bruce Wayne as Dick Grayson just took over for Batman. And then there's something going on in this comic where Robin turns against Dick. I don't know, it's mind control probably. Other than that, there's not too much to say about this, at least in my opinion. It didn't really stick with me. Yeah, so I think I'll just end it on that one. Not a bad comic read by any chance, just nothing memorable, at least compared to some of the other great Batman stories we got out there. Speaking of great Batman stories, The Long Halloween. To me, this is the quintessential Batman story. A lot of Batman media has taken inspiration from this, primarily The Dark Knight. It has a lot of similar elements to it, whether it be characters, story beats, twists and turns. Yeah, this is definitely one of the great Batman stories. If you haven't read it, this is the one I say put your money down for. It is worth every penny. Alright, so we have the Umbrella Academy, all 3 issues. Just so you can see them there. Yeah, so this is a comic series that I've not actually read the comic for, but I've seen the Netflix show. And if the Netflix show is anything to go by, I should have a blast with this because I enjoyed the hell out of the Netflix show. Yeah, so I don't have much to say on these. My girlfriend, these are hers. She got me into this whole series. But I will get around to reading them when I have the time. I'm really excited too because I don't know. What I should do is read all these before the 3rd season of the Netflix show comes out. That way I'm all caught up. I have an idea where the show's going and then see what the twists and turns are going to be about it. So yeah, very excited for that. All in all though, really excited to read these. All right. Sin City, The Hard Goodbye. I first fell in love with Sin City back right in my senior year of high school. Not the book, but the movie. It absolutely captivated me. It had a brilliant looking style, fun characters. I love noir anything. I'm a sucker for it, so I had to check this out when I got the chance. It was a little hard to read at first. Not hard to read, I should say. It's basically just because the entire movie is taken directly from this. Nothing new is really added with the exception of color here and there. Yeah, so that was the only problem I had with this book was I already knew it. I knew everything about it, but I still enjoyed it. I love the use of negative space that Frank Miller chooses. Frank Miller, to me, he has a lot of interesting work. The guy's a little off his rocker, if I'm being honest personally, but his comic work is top-notch from what I've read. So, if you haven't read Sin City, check them out. If you're a fan of detective stories, noir, hard-boiled, like detectives, boxers, stylistic superheroes, this is the book for you. All right. We've got Midnighter. I just picked this up last week, and my girlfriend has already finished it. She said it is a really awesome book. So, I'm really excited to check it out. She told me about this character, and it just absolutely like captured my attention like no other. So yeah, really gonna be excited to read that one. Yeah, unfortunately, like we had to pay like $60 for this one because it's no longer in print, and when this was used, it was absolutely outrageous, honestly. But I hope it's worth it. She says it is. All right, now we've got the Life is Strange collection. This is, again, these are my girlfriend's comics originally, but I am a big Life is Strange fan, as is she. That's how we kind of started to like bond together, is our love over Life is Strange. And honestly, I'm very excited to see this. This is almost like a what if, what happens after the first game. Excuse me. So, it'll be excited to take a read on these, honestly. I'm excited because I don't know anything about them, and I want to stay in the dark on that. Batman Nightfall, issue 1. Issue 2, and Nightfall issue 3. I have finished the first two. I'm about halfway through the final Nightfall, and it's a bit of a chore to get through that last one. This story, where they introduce Bane, and they break the bat, spoiler alert, but this comic book's like 80, not come out in the 80s or something. All in all, this series is fun. It's dragging on a little too long for my taste. I don't know when I'm going to get around to finishing this behemoth. Look how thick this is. This is a phone book. But it's not a bad story by any means. It's just it's a real investment in time. But I will have to say I loved the introduction of Bane. They really make Bane a very tactical, cold, malicious character. Batman, you really see the inside of his psyche, his determination, how insane Batman is in general. You follow a good plot with Robin and Dick Grayson as Nightwing. And Azrael, that's a whole new... Oh, wait, no. Jean-Paul Valley, but eventually becomes Azrael. This is a real interesting part because he takes up the mantle as Batman, and then he starts doing things Batman wouldn't do. And now that Batman has to, train himself back up to go fight the Bat. It's a real, twist on the story, I guess. All in all, though, really fun reads. I will finish them, just as a matter of when. All right, we've got The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I'm actually disappointed by this graphic novel. I watched the movie years ago. It was one of the movies I used to just flick on in the background. It's not a good movie, but the source material that it's based on, to me, just doesn't quite have the hook that I'm looking for. And I think that might just be because I'm unfamiliar with the literature world that these characters inhabit. For example, I've never read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I mean, I've seen the adaptation a billion different times, but I've never seen it. So I don't really know much about all of these characters. And I find for me, the plot that they're going for is, to me, I'm just a little confused by it. Especially when they jump back and forth in time. I found that, to me, wasn't a little bit clear. But I'm going to still finish it because I paid good money for this and I want to know how it ends and basically how everything's going. Oh, the light, the sun just went behind the cloud here. That's what I'm using for the light. So yeah, this is in my opinion, my least favorite book that I read by Alan Moore. Which, there's always got to be a least favorite. So not every, time you go to bat, you hit a home run, right? But I would consider this more of like a second base hit. All right, we've got, speaking of Alan Moore, Batman: The Killing Joke. This, to me, is a very good comic that suffers from its own reputation. What I mean by that is everybody holds this comic up as the quintessential Batman story and the quintessential Joker story. And it's good, don't get me wrong, but I feel like there have been more interesting comics out there, like The Long Halloween in my taste. This one does a unique thing in exploring the Joker's backstory and what it means to have just one bad day. And for the time especially, it was definitely a revolutionary comic by those days' standards. But but when I read it, I was let down by it, and I think it was just because of how much it was hyped up. And this is not the comic's fault. It's almost like you're being too good for your own good. That's how I would describe this comic, I guess. Like, it's too good for its own good. But let me know what you guys think of The Killing Joke. And actually, I got a question for you guys while I'm here. What did you guys think of The Killing Joke movie that came out a few years back? I'll give you my review right quick. Whoa! We've got Hellboy. This comic, I'm a fan of the Hellboy movies. All of them, even the new one with David Harbour, even though that's a bad movie, I still enjoy it. This one, for me, has a problem with pacing, I find. It just it never feels like it gets going for me. And I know I'm a minority, because a lot of people do like the Hellboy franchise. For me, it just seems like I'm still waiting for that big moment to happen, that heart-stopping moment, or that funny moment that makes me just have a real burst of emotion. I haven't quite got that yet. The setting itself is really fun. I'm enjoying the character Hellboy. I think he's a good bit of a wise ass. The character of Abe I find is really dry, and I think that's the intention, but for me, it doesn't come off as interesting dry. It just kind of comes off as he's just there. All in all, though, I will continue to read this because I love anything to do with the devil or hell as a concept or a setting in a story. Very, very interested in that kind of stuff. So yeah, not quite my favorite, but I still hold out hope for it. We've got Harleen. This is one I actually had bought my girlfriend when she was mad at me. So I bought her this, and I still haven't read it, but she says it's a really good story, especially if you're looking to write about manipulation. This story is great for that. Harley is one of my favorite characters in all DC. She is very vulnerable and yet still exudes so much strength of character for her. Which these type of stories are always great to listen to and read because they're so complex and there's no right or wrong answer to these stories. It's more of you look at what's happening and you just take it in. So really excited to read this soon. All right, we've got Batman R.I.P. This one, to me, didn't quite have all the bells and whistles that I wanted. It just kind of fell flat. This was a book recommended to me by a friend, and he said, don't set your expectations too high, because some people put this in the same league as The Long Halloween or The Killing Joke, and to me it was nowhere near the same ballpark. Not a bad story, it should not be grouped in with the previous stories that I mentioned. But yeah, check it out if you're looking for a good read. All right, we've got The Fade Out, so we're back to noir stories, and this story is a really fun little fictional version of Hollywood in the 40s. It has some people that are actually famous people. It's not all fictional. There are real people based within this. They only play small roles, but they do flesh out the world a little. it gives me a feeling of, like, it has an LA noir, like, obviously because it's based in that same time frame, but it also gives me a True Detective feel. That's what I was trying to figure out. Story's fun, the characters are interesting, the plot keeps getting thicker and thicker and thicker as the story goes on, and yeah, I had a real blast reading this, especially if you like the setting or the noir genre. Give this a read. Really good. Fables 1 and 2. I absolutely love these games. I was introduced to these via the game The Wolf Among Us. And then I checked these out, and they are absolutely amazing reads. It's got a great concept where you take the old, like, fairy tales that we all grew up as with kids, you know, like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, the Big Bad Wolf, and you follow these people in a 1980s version of New York City, what they would be doing, you know, after they all had to leave their homelands. And basically it's almost like a story talking about the immigrant experience, what it's like to leave everything and come to a new place. Really interesting, too, that they use fairy tales for that. Really impressive stuff. I really do recommend that you guys check these out. If you're not going to check these out, at least play The Wolf Among Us. They're really good stuff. All right. We've got Deadpool. I'll be honest with you guys, I'm not a big Deadpool fan. I did enjoy the movies. They pleasantly surprised me. But Deadpool, to me, he's one of those characters you really got to be in the mood for. And I'm just not always in a Deadpool mood because he's got a real, wise-ass charm to him. But sometimes I like to read a story that's just got a little bit more to it than what Deadpool brings, in my opinion. When I read Deadpool, I'm not reading for anything, profound. But, this comic wasn't bad. It's what you expect from a Deadpool comic. There's nothing more I can say about that, honestly. So, yeah, if you like Deadpool, give it a read. If you don't like Deadpool, well, you know what to do. Alright, this is the last of my girlfriend's comics, Tron the Betrayal. She hasn't said much about this, so I really don't know what to say, so I'm just going to show it off and then ditch her. Alright, we've got Batman Hush. I was disappointed by this comic, and I think it has the same problem that Killing Joke does. It has a reputation that exceeds it. It's a fun little mystery. You can see the ending coming a mile away, I found. But it was a fun ride. That's what I want to say. Much better, in my opinion, than the Blu-ray that came out a few years back. That, to me, just butchered the story, in my opinion. It just didn't have the same feel. They got the whole ending wrong. But yeah, if you like Batman and you like a mystery, perfect comic to check out. Really do recommend it. Alright, we've got Batman Gotham by Gaslight. I feel like I watched a short film about this. A short animated film, maybe? I actually haven't read this yet, but the concept of it taking place during time of Jack the Ripper. Totally. How the hell could you not want to check that out? Batman in 1890s London? Come on. This is the stuff comics are made for these fictional moments. So really excited to check this out. And every time I say really excited or anything along that line, you should take a shot. It'll definitely be fun. The Dark Knight Returns. This, to me, is one of the quintessential Batman comics because it completely revitalized Batman in terms of for the mainstream public. This comic basically made Batman cool again because for the most part, it seemed like people, from what I've spoken to, by, what was this, come out in 1988 or something like that, people really just viewed Batman as that character from the 1960s Adam West show. At least the main majority of the mainstream audience did. Comic book readers, we've been in the know for forever, but not everybody's in the know, unfortunately. But yeah, this is definitely a comic that I would say is almost like a time capsule because this captures the moments the era that this was written in, the Reagan era, the Cold War, it really speaks on that. It's a very political comic, too, for as much as Batman, you know, they usually don't like to get too much into that, but Frank Miller took it and said, no, we're getting political on it. And whether you like that or don't, you know, I commend the guy for taking having the balls to do it, because you can really alienate a lot of people. But no, this is a really good read for anybody who considers themselves a fan of the Batman. If you haven't read it, stop what you're doing, go buy this and read it. You have to if you consider yourself a Batman fan. 100 Bullets. Now, this to me was a comic I was let down by because they just, in my opinion, the concept is brilliant. You get... you find this person approaches all these different people who've been wronged in their life, and he gives them irrefutable evidence of what happened and a gun with untraceable bullets in it. And whoops, whatever they want to do to right that wrong is up to them. They can't be caught. And it's a great story on morality. What would you do with this story and everything? Great. Towards the end, it started getting a little bit too more convoluted and contrived, where this was an agency doing this and turning people into agents. Maybe I'm misremembering or misunderstanding, but 100 Bullets to me just it really tripped at the finish line, in my opinion. It Game of Thrones itself. But I hear they've got works in this with Tom Hardy to be a part of a movie for this, so I would definitely check out a film version of this to see what they would do different. Really interesting concept, though. I didn't like the ending. I'm not going to tell people not to read it because I had a great joy up until the last, 25%. But yeah, disappointed, but it was well worth the read, honestly. All right, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here. Civil War. Now, I bought this after seeing the movie years ago, and honestly, I thought this was a good comic book, honestly. It portrayed the different sides of the argument. I honestly, in my opinion, during this whole storyline, it's just for those who aren't aware, the Avengers split up. They divide in half because Tony Stark leads a side saying, oh, we should, sign in and register with the government. And then Cap's on the other hand saying, no, we shouldn't have to register with that. And the way this is kind of written is that Iron Man is the good guy. He does go to the extreme, but Iron Man is the good guy. In my opinion, Cap's the good guy. And I've felt that way in the movie too. Cap's the babyface in this situation. But they treat Cap like he's the bad guy. And honestly, I don't agree with that. Now, obviously, that's the whole point. Whose side are you on? And I'm on Cap's side. But no, I'm going on a bit of a tangent here. The story is great. It asks the good complex questions. It's interesting, too. It's a great discussion because you get to ask other readers, whose side were you on? And that brings out a phenomenal way to get to know people. So yeah, really recommend this book. It is done... It's different from the movie. Different enough, too, where it is well worth the read. The same big beats are the same in the movie for the most part. But this one is a strong contender for one of my favorite comics I've ever read. Alright, now nobody's going to be surprised by this one I've got on here. Watchmen. Everybody and their grandmother who reads comics has read Watchmen. It is an influential piece of work that was even honored, I think, in the top selling books on the New York Times or something like that. The first comic to ever do that. And it's definitely earned its stripes. It's a very complex and interesting way of looking at, the Cold War. Like what I was saying earlier about Frank Miller, he's not the only one to have a political stance in this. Alan Moore, to me, might be my favorite comic book writer, just because I find his work has a little bit more meat to it than a Frank Miller does, in my opinion. But no, Watchmen, real great piece of work. There's nothing I can really say about this that hasn't already been said, except for the fact that the movie is not good, in my opinion, and the HBO show is interesting. So all that comes from this. So yeah, give it a read if you haven't. If you're watching this, you probably have already, though. I wouldn't say, though, read any of those prequels like the before Watchmen. They just don't hold up in my opinion. All right, now for my favorite graphic novel that I own today, and I had a real hard time picking between this and The Long Halloween. So the fact that I passed over a Batman comic for this says a lot. And this is a character that I never have read for until this. Wolverine, Old Man Logan. This was the first comic I have ever read cover to cover in one sitting, and it was well worth it. It's very different from the movie in terms of the aesthetic. Like, the basic plot is the same, like, oh, they gotta travel across the country, blah, blah, blah. But it's completely different. It's almost like, it feels like a Western to me, like this old gunslinger is going out for one last ride. It feels like Unforgiven. And you have this whole new dystopian world where the bad guys defeated the heroes. Now the heroes who are alive live in hiding. And what is Wolverine going to do? He doesn't want to, pop his claws. He hasn't popped his claws for like 40 years. And now it's a whole new world, and he's got to survive in it. And he's got a family that's got to survive in it. They've got dead heroes. They've got dinosaurs. And, an all around a captivating story with a very interesting character. You definitely see Logan's struggle internally with, swallowing his pride and rage. Definitely a good read. I'm definitely going to be picking up more in this long series. Highly recommend this, though. It's really good. Oh, and before I forget, I have Batman right here. I don't know if you guys can see too well. So, this is Batman the Court of Owls, and I really want to read it, but I don't want to open the box because it looks so good. I've heard great things about that comic, and I think that's what the new Arkham game is going to be based on, is this comic. So I'm going to check it out eventually. It's just going to be hard to open the packaging. Alright, that's my graphic novel collection, guys. What did you think about what I've got? Tell me, what are some of your favorite comics that you own? Hey, if you guys got a collection too, I've been saying this to some of you guys in the comments. Show it off, tag me in it. I want to see what you guys have. And until next time, guys, hit that subscribe button and keep on binging.